Hey guys, Christina Marie here, and it is midnight. I got home about an hour ago from rehearsals, and then I had dinner super late, so I should be reading. Right now I'm actually reading The Memory Painter by Gwendolyn Womack. This is her debut novel. It needs to be read like now because I have to write a review for it. It has to be up in like 7 hours, so I'm gonna be up for a while reading this, but that's fine. I don't have to go anywhere tomorrow. But never mind that. This is my May wrap-up video, and all of the books that I read this month, or last month, May, were ebooks except for one, but I'm going to just insert the cover here because I have put that book in my living room on my living room shelf, and I don't feel like getting up. So I'm just going to insert all the pictures and all the covers right here. I read a total of 11 books, technically 10, but I'm going to call 11 because the 11th one I finished on June 1st, and so I figure that counts. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm very, very good at selecting books that I know I will like, even books that are sent to me. Like, if I don't think I like it, I won't review it because I just don't like to write negative reviews on my blog, on Goodreads, anything like that. But you know, sometimes I misjudge my own tastes and I end up reading a book that I don't like. But yeah, let's go ahead and just get started. I'll just list all the books out that I read, telling you my star rating, what I thought about the book very briefly. I never really go into detail on purpose because I don't want to spoil anything, because if I really like something, I could talk for ages, and if I really didn't like something, I can also talk for ages. So I'm not going to do either one of those. Let's do this. So the first book I read was Legacy by Stephanie Fournette, or Fournette. This is a book about a girl whose boyfriend passes away and she doesn't quite know how to deal with it, so she goes through all kinds of things. She's a painter, an artist, and her life just stops after he dies, and she meets a guy. Well, she already knew this guy. Her dead boyfriend's best friend comes into her life to try and help her, and in that interaction they start to have feelings for one another, and this is just a story of her healing and her moving on in her life with a new person, her deceased boyfriend's best friend. It was beautiful. This was a beautiful, beautiful story. Stephanie Fournette, I've never read anything by her before, or Fournette, however you pronounce it, but I loved the story. I ended up giving it a 4.5 stars. Next, I read Neverland by Sherry Arnold. This is actually a Peter Pan-ish retelling. Not necessarily a retelling, but it's more of an homage to Peter Pan, about this girl, young adult. It's a young adult book, yeah. This girl meets a boy who just really takes her on this whole adventure, and it turns out that he lives in a place called Neverland, pretty much, and she's dealing with the death of her little sister, and she hasn't quite come to terms with it, and she ends up meeting this boy who kind of helps her heal from that, but also he introduces her to a world that really, quite frankly, doesn't exist in reality. But it's just a story about her falling in love with him, and they fall in love with each other, and he lives here, she lives there, and so on and so forth, and just kind of how they learn to, how she learns to heal, and how he learns to stop living, you know, in his youth, I guess is the word for it, because that's what Peter Pan is really about. Peter Pan is just about never growing old, and so they kind of learn a lot of lessons from each other, and I really enjoyed this story. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next story I read is Cross My Heart by Katie Frederick, and I loved this. This was a military romance, and you guys know how I feel about military romances. I'm all about them, especially when they're done well. And Katie really just hit the ball right out of the park with this one. I really loved this story. Both of the characters were so great. I mean, there were times when the female character kind of got on my nerves just a little bit because she had a little bit of a chip on her shoulder at times about things. I couldn't quite understand it. Well, actually I could, because the main character, I mean the male character, was a little bit of a playboy at times. But I loved this. I had a great time. The male character dealt with a lot of repercussions from his time in the military, which was also played into why the two characters butted heads a lot. But of course, it's a romance, so you know they get it together at some point. But how they get it together is what really sold it for me, and I really just love the story so much. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next book I read was All Played Out by Cora Carmack. This is the 3rd book in the Rusk University series. Didn't love this one as much as I loved the first 2. I feel like, I feel bad saying this, but I feel like Cora phoned it in with this one. I really, really do. I could not connect with Nell, the main character, at all. And then Torres was just so generic, and there was nothing about him that really grabbed me. I liked him more than I did her, though. Nell, I feel like what Cora made her into this character that was just so bland, but so, she tried to be everything kind of a thing. She went from A to Z in like a span of 2 seconds, and I just could not believe how disconnected I felt with the story. With that being said, I still felt the old Rusk University feel in the story a lot of the time, but not on the part of either of these characters. I felt it whenever I saw characters from previous stories in the book. That I really loved. And every now and then I appreciated Nell and Torres, but more times than not, I was just like, eh. So I ended up giving this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is called Job Hunt, and it was by Jackie Keswick. This is actually a male-male romance kind of a book, and it's about this guy who goes on a lot of operative, like cooperative and undercover work, and the guy who trained him ends up getting mixed up in it, and they go out on these missions together, just really saving young kiddos from, you know, sex trafficking and sex, you know, enslavement and like child pornography, that kind of stuff. It was interesting, but at the same time, it was just kind of like, I can take it or leave it. The relationship was decent. The story was okay. I don't know. There was just something about this story that I didn't quite love. I read a male-male romance before, and it was by Becca Vincenza, and I love Becca. She did such a great job with that book. I don't remember what it's called. It was a novella that I read earlier this year, and it was so good. And I think she kind of hit the ball like way out of the park for me, to where nothing else can come close. So while I enjoyed Job Hunt, I didn't love it, so I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. They Call Me Alexandre Gaston by T.A. McLagan. I really like this one. This was a really interesting book. It's a young adult book about this girl who is really born to be an agent, like a secret super agent, like undercover. She was born and trained and planted into this world where she had to find all this information and take it back to her home country. In that whole process, she ends up really loving the family and the friends that she's met in her new life that she's, you know, undercover with. And yeah, I liked it. It was a lot of fun to read. I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars. It was just a lot of fun. I had a good time. Nothing, it was unlike, it's very different from a lot of the things that I've read. The next book I read, this is the physical book that I had that's in the living room. It's called Keetee by EJ Fish. Some of you may be familiar with this because I introduced it in January as part of the indie books that I'm going to be reading. And EJ is the second book out of that pile that I have read, and I really loved this book. It is a sci-fi book about a boy named Aroska, I believe, a young man named Aroska who is coming back from a really bad ordeal. His brother was wrongfully executed. His team, he works on special ops team. His team was killed on an operation, and now he's recovering and just kind of trying to deal with all of that. And then he gets assigned to the team, to a team for a mission that is led by the person that executed his brother. And her name is Ziva. Ziva is a badass. I loved Ziva. Ziva is one of the strongest characters that I've ever seen. She was written so well, but she wasn't to the point where, oh my gosh, I am woman, hear me roar kind of thing. She was just a really strong, bullheaded character that was so much fun to watch just interact and develop throughout the book. Aroska was really, really great too, and he helped in Ziva's development. I just really like seeing them together. One thing that EJ Fish does with this book, and I can tell she's going to do it with the whole series, that a lot of people tend to not do, she stayed away from the romance. There's no romantic entanglements here at all, and I was a little bit disappointed in that, but that's just because I'm a hopeless romantic when it comes to most things. But stepping back from it, I realized that that was the way to go, especially with this book. This book was so strong on its own, and it didn't need any help from a romantic subplot at all. It was so fantastic. I ended up giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is Mia and the Bad Boy, and this is by Lisa Bernstein. This is just a contemporary little young adult novel about a boy who was part of a boy band who falls below in his education. He wants to get his GED or whatnot, so he needs some tutoring. And then Mia, who is, I guess, a young teenager. How do your parents just send you on a tour bus with the band to tutor a boy? Whatever. So that's what she does. She's tutoring him, and they end up falling in love, yada, yada, yada. It's a very generic kind of a story, which is why I ended up giving a 3.5 out of 5 stars. There were moments of, like, super drama, of course, on the part of the male character. Mia was a little bit on the boring side. But she did have parents who were just really just, ugh. But I liked the fact that this was a story about music. And Mia did have a passion for music, which is how she and male character, whose name I can't remember, really kind of started to get a little closer. It was a nice story. I wasn't bored. It's nothing that I'm going to remember, but it was a good, like, read. So if you want something that's a nice palate cleanser, Mia and the Bad Boy will do it for you. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next book I read is called Letting Go, and this is by Jessica Reddick. Liked this one a lot. A whole lot. This is about a young girl, and you're going to see a recurring theme with the books I read this month. A young girl who is dealing with the suicide of her then boyfriend. She's moving on with life, going to college. She ends up meeting this guy who's a frat boy, and they hit it off, and he really likes her, but she just can't seem to let go of the suicide of her boyfriend at the time. So they didn't necessarily end their relationship. He committed suicide while they were still dating, and so she's dealing with that, but also dealing with having feelings for this new guy. And it was well written. This could have easily gone in the wrong direction. It could have easily just been so cheesy and so overdone and so blah, you know. But it was really, really good. Jessica Reddick did a really fantastic job with this story. I was there from page 1 to page whatever the last page was. It was a really just great read, just about healing, you know, and falling in love and giving yourself permission to be happy, even if you deem yourself responsible for something that is not your fault at all. Our main character just felt really responsible for the death or the suicide of her boyfriend at the time, and she just kind of goes through the phase, you know, in the process of healing and just trying to just overcome that pain. And I just liked it. I had a really good time with it. I liked it a lot. So I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Now, remember when I told you there's a book that I ended up reading that I just did not like at all, and I was like super disappointed? Well, that book is Girl Spoken For by Susie T. Ruse. This book, I don't even know what to say about it. I was angry when I finished it because I just didn't understand how this book even got past the editing process. And I don't say that about books. I'm not this harsh, but it was so bad. The premise of the book, like the synopsis of the book, doesn't really make sense until like 80%, 70% through the book. Like, the aspect that I was even interested in isn't even introduced until more than halfway through the book. I'm reading the book, getting a whole other synopsis that I didn't read, and I just was so confused the entire time. Like, I there were so many things I did not like about this book. The main character, the female character, was so weak. You guys, she was so weak. And I sat there reading the book, just clutching my chest. Like, seriously? You know, I couldn't. This book left a really bad taste in my mouth. It really, really did. And I'm really sad about it. Like, seriously sad about it. But it just did not work for me. It may have worked for some other people, because I looked on Goodreads and it got a lot of good reviews. Well, not a lot of people reviewed it, but it got primarily positive reviews. I'm one of the only ones that just was like, seriously? No one else saw what I saw with this book? It didn't work for me. I ended up giving it a 2 out of 5 stars. And a 2 is pushing it. Then the final book I read, which just wrapped up a fantastic reading month, was The Summer Remains by Seth King. This book has been thrown in my face several times over the past few weeks, and I just had time to read it, so I decided to pick it up and go ahead and just do it. And I'm so glad that I did. This book is a powerful read. It really is. It's an emotional read. It's a beautiful read. I had a fantastic time just flipping through those pages and really just immersing myself into the story. I will say that I was on the verge of giving this book a 4 or 4.5 stars, but then the final few pages locked in that 5-star rating for me. I am not going to tell you at all what this book is about, because I personally did not read the synopsis, because I didn't want to go into this book with any kind of knowing of what I was going to get into. And I am so glad that I did that, because it just made me appreciate it that much more, and just made me love it that much more. Granted, there are moments where you can tell, oh, this is a newer author. This is probably like his first book, or one of his first books, or whatnot. But that didn't mean anything after a while, because you just really started to feel the heart behind the words that were on those pages. You really started to feel the intention and the emotion and the love and the pain and just the sadness and the joy. You felt everything when reading this book. And Seth King is a new adult author. He really appreciates and loves the new adult genre, but he feels like it needs to have a man's touch in it, which is cool. You know, welcome, buddy. We want you here. My friend Ethan says that a lot. Ethan likes new adult, but he wishes there were more male authors. So Seth King is a pretty, you know, good start to this. If there are more men who want to write more like Seth. And Seth has a lot of growing to do too, but there was just too much passion in his words for me to even care about the writing style and, you know, sometimes the oversaturation of really, really beautiful lines. You know, beautiful lines are beautiful, but not so much when they're all grouped together. And that's what I feel happened sometimes in this book, where I was like, oh, there's a beautiful line. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And they were all like in a span of like the same like 2 pages. And that kind of got a little old, but beyond that, the book was fantastic. It was great. I loved it. 5 out of 5 stars, hands down. So that is it. That's what I read this month. I read 11 books. It was great. I'm so excited for my TBR this month, even though I have no idea what it is. I have no idea what it is. I haven't even thought about it yet. So my June TBR video is going to be a little late this month. Again, that's fine. But yeah, I'm excited. My TBR is definitely going to be a little looser this year, or this month, but it'll be a good one. But yeah, let me know what you guys read this month. Comment down below letting me know if you read any of these books and what your thoughts were. Thumbs up this video if you enjoyed. And make sure you subscribe to my channel for more videos, of course. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I love you so, so, so much. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.